And my name is Cllr Surinder Purewal. I'm for the Council of Hounslow Central Ward, and I'm the chair of the Audit and Governance Committee. It's now 5 o'clock. We're just gone a minute over. And I'd like to welcome you all to this second virtual meeting of the Hounslow Audit and Governance Committee. I'd like to welcome the members of the committee who are sitting this evening, as well as the council officers who will be assisting the members throughout the meeting. In addition, I would like to welcome members of the public who are watching from home. As you all know, that until recently, virtual meetings for council business were not legal, but as a result of the coronavirus pandemic and the quarantine arrangements required by the government, the law has recently changed to let the local authorities meet in a virtual way to make decisions. Therefore, this meeting is taking place using the recently introduced government regulations. The way the meeting will work will be that as a chair, I will be running the meeting and inviting people to speak, as it's very easy to people to speak over each other in the meeting. Every meeting like this, I'll ask each member or officer to speak in turn at the appropriate stage, and everyone will have a chance. This will mean that there should be normally no need for people to interrupt or to ask to speak. However, if a member does have an urgent reason to interject, for example, to point of order, please do so by turning your microphone and telling me that you wish to interject. The exception to this will be the committee or finance officers who may turn on their microphone to alert me to any procedural or finance issue that need addressing. Although I would expect this to be a rare occasion. In addition, we have the producer of the meeting from IT department who may also contact me if necessary, but I think this is unlikely if all goes well, as we hope it will. The elected for members of the committee and the officers who are expecting to speak will be to mute their microphone and until you ask to speak. This means that only one person will be speaking at a time, and there will be no background noise, making it easier for us to follow the meeting and also those watching at home. I will ask our members to always to say who they are when they make a contribution and to speak slowly and clearly for the same reason. The members of the audit committee with us this evening will be making the decisions. Officers of the council will provide assistance and advice and as required, but the final decision will be made by the members. I would like to introduce now to the members who are here now. I start with my name, Cllr Surinder Purewal, and I'm the chair of the committee. I'm a ward councillor for the Heston ward. Now I will now invite Councillor Lal to introduce himself.
Chair, Councillor Gurmail Lal from the Heston East ward.
Councillor Todd.
Good evening, Councillor John Todd from Chiswick.
So just the three of us at the moment.
Chair.
Councillor Easton. Of course, we didn't see it yesterday. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Richard Easton, Labour Councillor for Osterley and Spring Grove ward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We also have the officers who will be presenting the reports, including Clive Parkman, Rupert Gavani, Laura Watson, Mike Pinder, and Stu Frith and Lucy Nutley, representative of external auditors, Mazars. In addition to the officers, we'll have Kay Duffy and Jyoti Patel present from the committee services. We also have officers acting in a producing role for the technical side of the meeting, but as they are not expected to be involved in the discussion or the meeting, I will thank them for their help, but not introduce them by name. Members of the public are reminded that the agenda and the reports being considered by the committee tonight will be found on the council website under the Audit and Governance Committee meetings page. So if you want to see them, that's where to look. I also want to make sure that all members have seen the agenda and reports. Please speak if you have not seen them now. Happy? I would like to remind members of the need to hear all of the presentation for each report we are considering tonight. This means that you should listen to the whole debate. Please do not pop out to make a cup of tea or walk the dog. This is a legal requirement, and I will be asking you to confirm that you have heard the whole debate before you vote on any matter this evening. If you should find that you are having technical problems and need to log out for the meeting and come back again, please let me know immediately, ideally beforehand, but if not, afterwards, by turning on your microphone. This would be permitted interruption, we can then decide how far we need to recap, if that is necessary, or if the member needs to not to vote on that item. Finally, I would say to any member of the public listening or watching at home, thank you for your phoning us this evening. We hope that this will thank you for joining us this evening. We hope that the meeting will go well, but in the case, every time the Audit and Governance Committee has been in this way, we would ask you to bear with us if there are any hitches. Thank you. We will now move to the first item of the agenda. Yeah. The first item of the agenda is apologies for having done that. Minutes of the meeting held on 23rd of July, 2020. Has everybody seen, looked at the minutes? Can I ask everybody? Anybody not seen the minutes? Any points arising? Do we all agree the minutes?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Now we move on to agenda item, next item. And that's Audit and Investigation Performance Report. Mike Pinder.
Hi, Cllr Purewal, thank you.
Hello, Mike.
Hi. So this is a report for noting. This is our usual update report on the activity of audit and investigation. This relates to the period Q1. So I'd probably like to highlight to members a key piece of our work during the period related to the COVID work, which is at paragraph 5.2, highlighting three projects: the PPE store, which looked at the security arrangements issuing and around the prioritisation; expenditure, which was a sort of a backstop audit, where essentially we looked at a number of areas of expenditure, did some transactional analysis, and undertook some testing to try and focus on areas of expenditure and ensure continued compliance through the period in terms of those key expenditure controls. And on the final was relating to the COVID grants, and basically it's just some advice on the grant process and the authorisations. We move on after that to 5.5, which is our normal update against projects. And as you'll see, a challenging period in terms of the what I'd call the more ordinary work. But as you'll see from the KPIs down at 5.9, we did actually meet our original target and actually exceed it by 1%. We have a number of projects in Q2 that we are commencing, and we hope to be largely on target for Q2. We've had to move around and work with the organisation due to obviously different priorities and those kind of things, meaning that services have had to respond to certain things. But largely we're working to get everything scheduled in, so with the aim of completing all the work within this financial year. Moving to the follow-up section, which is at 5.10. So a challenging time for me and some of the services. So we haven't been updating as regularly, and some of these areas have got a bit of a lag. I'm speaking to the departments myself to try and ensure that we have progress against these ahead of our January meeting. And I hope to provide a more positive update in terms of the status of those. Some of these have just got a little bit old, and I have been talking to the services to try and ensure that that they are progressed. Finally, just talking of section 6, we have the proactive and anti-fraud reactive work. We've done some proactive work relating to the grant applications, to just try and ensure the controls and that framework was in place, and that people who qualified, or rather didn't qualify, weren't awarded grants. On the reactive side, I'm pleased to report that performance was largely in line with last year as at Q1. Again, it has been a very challenging time for the reactive fraud team, and probably some of these actually relate to stuff that was sort of coming to an end towards the previous year. We struggled obviously to do interviews under caution during lockdown. This is where people come help us with our inquiries, and obviously visits and those kind of activities were harder to undertake. That said, as I say, at the moment performance has been okay. We're just getting those things in. I'd say referrals are slightly down during the period as well, probably just to the disruptions in services and those kind of things. So it will be a challenging year in this area, but we're looking at ways of just ensuring that the referrals come through and we're getting some of the activities and work done, and where we have had referrals, we've been able to progress. Any questions?
Yes, please, Chair.
You're on mute, Councillor Purewal.
We're with Councillor Todd, if Councillor Todd wants to put his question. Thanks.
Okay, if you don't mind. Yeah, hi, Mike.
Hi.
Paragraph 5.3, page 8.
Yep.
Can you educate me? What's the assurance board?
So it's an additional board that was set up in relation to the development of a recovery programme that the council's been working on. It's an interim status thing that's very much focused on that recovery work and assurance around that. So it's a small temporary group.
Well, what do you mean by recovery? What's your definition of recovery?
Okay, so the council's been working on a recovery programme to sort of post-COVID, which relates to getting back to the sort of new normal from the council perspective, but also from the borough perspective.
Okay,
and it's been...
that makes sense, Mike. Yeah.
Cool.
Can I put one more in? Para 6.8 on 16, page 16, para 6.8, please.
Yep.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, 5 council properties recovered £90,000. Can you put
Yeah.
that figure in context?
So yes, of course. The Audit Commission, as was a few years ago, did some analysis on the cost, the sort of opportunity cost of council properties, and they set it at a figure of 18,000, which was based upon the alternative cost of temporary accommodation. So it's sort of the opportunity cost. So each property recovered is valued at an £18,000 figure.
So can you develop that a bit? When you say they're recovered, is this someone who's renting or tried to buy them or what? It's not very clear.
Okay, so where it's a recovery, it's usually either a sublet or an authorised succession. So if the original tenant has moved out, they can they can't sublet their property, and they have.
That's very clear, Mike.
Well, thank you.
I'm very grateful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Hi, Councillor Eason.
Yeah, thank you. Chair seems to be muted, I think, still.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Mike. In the table of on page 8, 5.5, we have number 3, leisure centres.
Yeah.
Review of the contract management arrangements for Fusion. Can you tell us what's going to happen with that item, given the contract with Fusion is being terminated? Is that item coming off the list, or is that going to be morphed into some other sort of work in that area?
So I've been having conversations initially with Victoria Lawson from the department. Obviously, there wouldn't be much value in doing the management of the contract bit now, as you point out. We're looking at the value to the council of doing something to sort of see how they are up and running once they're up and running. We need to talk to the new department that's going to be running that, or the new organisation that's going to be running that, to just confirm that. But I think there would be some value in just making sure that, I mean, obviously they've got a plan in terms of how they get into operation, but from our point of view, just looking at the sort of high risk stuff, to make sure that the stuff is in place. So we are talking to the service about that, and we'll update you on that once we've agreed it in a subsequent quarter.
So, Mike, you will be looking at the financial implications and the health and safety matter.
So we'll define basically what we're going to cover within that, but it will look at the primary risk that we perceive to be there from that. So I suspect there'll be some financial, and I think some potentially health and safety, those kind of things. But we just need to we're having the high level conversations about where the best place to do that at the moment is, and then we'll scope up exactly what we're going to target as we move on onto the actual setting of the audit.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Anybody else? No? Can we note this report? Can we note this report?
Yes, noted.
Thank you. So moving on to the next item. That's Laura, it's yours.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I may, sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt, just for the formal record of the meeting, you didn't hear from all of the individual councillors there on that. Are you happy to take that as a general approval or for noting of that item?
I did ask, as I understood that everybody actually said yes to note. Did anybody?
Thank you very much. So you're happy to take it
Yes.
if anybody objects, then obviously you'll take a vote on that.
Yes. Yes, I would. Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Laura, yes, yours now.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. This is the usual quarterly monitoring of the corporate risk register to the quarter as at the end of June. And this time we've also got the annual approval of the risk strategy. So we've got a number of mitigating actions that we've taken in the last quarter, but only one risk score has changed. And this is commerciality, risk 10, Lambton 360. This is reduced from 10 to 8 because the likelihood's reduced, but it still remains amber. The knock-on effect on the average risk score is reducing the average risk score from 11.3 to 11.1. So the report follows the usual format. On page 21, you've got a summary of the mitigating actions.
Yeah.
And page 22, we've got the matrix of the risk scores, and we've still got the 3 red risks.
Yeah.
These are Brexit, the medium-term financial strategy, and the housing supply and demand risk. The direction of travel chart shows that the average scores come down from 11.3 to 11.1, as I just said.
Yeah.
And then this time we do have the annual approval of the risk strategy. It's something that we have to review every year. It's not changed from last year, but para 5 has a summary of the roles. So the role for the Audit and Governance Committee is to approve the risk strategy and to note the quarterly monitoring that comes to you every quarter.
Yeah.
The full strategy is attached to Appendix 3.
Yeah.
We've got 3 appendices to the entire report. Appendix 1 is the full risk register.
Yeah.
Appendix 2 is the risk scoring methodology,
Yeah.
and Appendix 3 is the strategy.
Yes.
I have to take questions. The recommendations are to note the monitoring, but to approve the strategy. And just as a heads up, next time we're intending to do a total refresh of the entire corporate risk register. So that will come to the next meeting, which is in January.
Thank you. Colleagues, have we got any questions here?
Yes, please.
Councillor Todd?
Yeah, good evening, Lorelei.
So,
You have a major job with this report. I'm very impressed. Can I come on to your page 19, the report summary dealing with Lambton,
yes.
please? I think there was comment in the auditor's initial report as to the activities of Lambton, but I'm testing my memory. But how high is the risk with Lambton? And secondly, does Lambton include Cllr? In other words, all our trading companies?
Yeah, it does include Koalo. The entire risk is on page 43 of your agenda.
Okay.
So the likelihood has come down from 5 to 4, and it's come down because of the monitoring processes and the new contracts that are in place.
Okay.
So the impact is quite low. It's marginal, but it does include all the companies. So it includes Koalo, Green Space, and Recycle.
Okay, but who actually gives you the detail? Which do you assess that figure, or do you do it in a group, the risk numbers?
Well, the risk is owned by Clive Palfreman, the Executive Director for Finance, so it's his risk. So he does the initial scoring, and then it's kind of modified when it goes to CLT. So all the risk scores are assessed together to ensure that they're all on the same scope, if you like, methodology. But it will be the Section 151 officer, as it's his risk, who will do the initial scoring.
Okay. I'm looking at page 43 now. The
Yeah.
September review date is being worked towards an outline for a new structure for our trading companies. Is that separate from, so I hope you don't mind me asking these hard questions. Is that separate from the amalgamation of Greenpeace or Green Space with Carlisle?
So that shall I come in, Lorelei?
Yes,
that was part of the report that went to the last Cabinet, Councillor, which outlined a few structural changes to our trading companies, and as part of that, Green Space and Koalo working more closely together under the same umbrella.
Okay, Clive, that's very helpful. Thank you, Lorelei.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody has any questions? Anybody else has any questions?
No.
No? Can we know this? Actually, it's a very tremendous amount of work, and all details of all the risks have been given up to page 51. So you can see what has been done and how they assess the risks. Yeah.
Yep.
So do we note this?
Yep.
Yep.
It's not for approval, it's just for noting.
Noted.
Sorry, Chair, yeah, we have to approve the risk strategy.
Yes,
There's two
approve the,
recommendations.
do we agree? The
Yes.
rest is approved.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Easton?
Yes,
you.
agreed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lorelei.
Can we move to the next item then? It's Mike again. Mike?
Hello again, sir. So this is your annual report, effectively. So I'm asking members to report to note the report, but also approve that it represents an accurate reflection of their work during the year. This will then Councillor Purewal will present to Cabinet as a summary. Probably, I think the main thing for yourselves to note over and above, obviously, the content and confirming that it's sort of as I say, the accurate reflection and meets your terms of reference, which is there for Appendix A, is the forward look. Very, very recently, almost as we were writing this report, there was a report issued called the Redmond Report, which is at 4.2. There's a lot of recommendations around the future working of local audit, largely talking about external audit, membership of committees, including independent members, and that the accounts will need to go to full council. We're looking at those recommendations, and we'll bring you a more detailed summary as the sort of meat is put on the bone, so to speak. But just something I think to be aware of in terms of current issues. Other than that, just asking you all to note, or if you've got any questions or observations to add to your report.
Thank you, Mike. Any colleague? Anybody any questions?
No, Chair.
Councillor Lal?
No questions, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Todd?
No questions. Thanks for the report.
Thank you. Can we note the report then, please?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you.
Noted.
Now we go to item 6, the accounts. Rupa is with you. Before you actually come in, I must say that the accounts, because of the COVID pandemic, we actually couldn't do everything, and normally previously the government had decided the accounts should be filed in July, and now they are saying later, but probably the final accounts are not here yet, and you can give us the real situation with where we are.
Thank you, Councillor Purewal, and evening members. So draw your attention to page 76 in the pack, which is just a very short covering report to give you an update on the statement of accounts process as it currently stands. Well, actually, that was a report at the time of publishing, so we'll update you on that, given it's been a week or so since we published. So there's a couple of items to note and a couple of recommendations that are made in the report. As Councillor Purewal just mentioned, because of the COVID pandemic this year, you'll remember at the last committee meeting, I updated you that actually the deadline dates had been relaxed slightly, A, in terms of the council preparing the accounts, and B, for those accounts being audited and published for the final set of accounts. So for the draft accounts we published shortly after the original window that we would have done, and those accounts are currently in the process of being audited by our auditors, Mazars, who are also on the call, and will provide you with an update as to how their audit work's going and where they're at with that audit at this stage. With the report, we also kind of circulated an updated set of accounts. That was more just to kind of give you a flavour of where the accounts were at the point of writing. So there are no adjustments or material adjustments made in those updated set of accounts, just a few disclosure amendments around heritage assets and just explaining how the corporate restructure that took place this year and how that affects the income and expenditure statement, but it's purely there just for additional information. As we currently stand at the moment, the audit's still progressing, and I'll let Lucy provide an update as to the audit work and how that's progressing at this stage, but we're not at completion stage yet, so unfortunately I'm not able to get you to approve the final set of accounts as they would stand this evening. However, the report does request audit and governance committees to delegate the approval of the final set of accounts, including any final amendments and adjustments, to the chair of the audit committee and Clive, who would sign the set of accounts. As the publishing deadline for the final set of statutory deadline is the 30th of November, we've still got another 2 months or so to get it published, but there won't be another audit and governance committee between now and then. I'll hand over, I don't know if it's probably wise for me just to hand over to Lucy, probably from Mazars, to give you an update on the audit, and then maybe we can take questions after Lucy's given you an update.
Yeah, before I go to Lucy, I've just said that obviously the accounts won't be ready and they need to be audited by the external auditors. Well, we have them ready well before the deadline, so they can audit the accounts. So
will we have a final
yes.
set of
Yes.
accounts?
Yes.
For all? Yes. So the aim is to be publishing well before the 30th of November statutory deadline.
Yep,
but I'll let Lucy provide an update in terms of how the audit works progressing towards that publishing date.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rupa. Lucy, the ball is your court now.
Thank you, Chair. So we have sent an audit progress report to this committee, and as Ruth has highlighted, my apologies that is not a completion report. I did not feel comfortable in the level of progress that we've made to this point to issue you with a completion report. So that's why I've issued a progress report. The audit is progressing. As I think I have highlighted before, remote auditing is effective. It's not always efficient, and we are finding it's just taking a bit longer to do things. It's also taking us a lot longer to get confirmations from third parties, which is holding us up in some areas. We are working as fast as we can, full steam ahead, to be completed as soon as possible and well until the 30th November deadline. And just noting that Mike and I are singing from the same hymn sheet, and we've also put a link to the Redmond review in that progress report if members are interested. And if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to take that at any point.
Any colleague, any has questions?
Yes, please, Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, hi, Lucy. I'm fascinated why your intense detail on property valuations, and in particular HRA. Given the times and the marketplace, what are you seeking to achieve there?
Property valuations, I mean, they form such a huge part of the council's balance sheet. It's, you know, a significant proportion of the council's balance sheet is made up with property valuations, and under the accounting and auditing standards that we work to, there's a significant requirement on us to do a lot of work around property valuations, and a lot of that work is based on accounting standards which are set in a corporate world, where, you know, you could leverage the town hall in a commercial transaction. Clearly that would never happen to Hounslow House, but a lot of our work is on that basis. We do a huge amount of work around property valuations, We have found this year that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there clearly is a lot of uncertainty around valuations. So we are having to do additional work with valuers to understand those valuation uncertainties so we can form an opinion as to whether that's likely to give you a material difference in that value. And the HRA valuations as well are done on benchmarks, they're done on index basis, so it's looking at those and benchmarking them to make sure that what the valuer has applied in Hounslow is reasonable and it's giving a materially accurate number. It is a huge amount of work, and that's why we've put so much in there. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Do you do this every year, or have you just picked on it this year?
No, we look at land and building valuations in detail every year. It's one of the biggest pieces of work that we do.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Give me your oversight on our trading companies. You've seen the risk report.
In terms of the audit, really what we look at is the numbers. So A plus B less C gives us the group situation, and we do consider working with third parties as part of the value for money work. There's nothing in there at the moment that is making me nervous around the value for money conclusion or the group accounts at this.
So do you agree with our risk of being amber?
I mean, clearly the risk will have been thought out through the risk management process. But
we expect you to test it, don't we?
It's probably fairly consistent. It's not inconsistent with what I know, I would say.
Thank you.
It's a theoretical thing, isn't it? Obviously, it could change from day to day, couldn't it?
Chairman, an independent view is very important.
Yes, it is quite important. Yes, it's important.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else has got any questions? Any colleague? No questions? No questions from the house, Lucy? Yeah.
The chair.
Well, yes. Did you want to ask us, Conservation?
No, Chair. No, I'm content.
Thank you. Can we just note the report, because I see there's nothing, it's not approval at the moment because no accounts been.
Well, there is a recommendation.
Yeah, I was going to say, Cllr Purewal, there's a recommendation in the reports back on page 76.
Oh, sorry,
so in order for us to meet the statutory deadline, we're seeking members to approve delegation to yourself and to Clive Holtzman in his capacity, as you would do anyway, to sign off the final set of accounts.
Yes, obviously, then we normally, as you know from the past, that we used to look at the accounts well before they are actually approved, that as well. So can we approve it, please?
Can I speak to that, Chair?
Pardon?
Can I speak to that?
Yes, certainly.
The accounts are delayed, and we've heard why, and we are reassured by Mr. Puffman and the auditor that there are no major issues. No. But I think it would be helpful if the accounts were circulated to members of the Audit and Governance Committee 7 days before the sign-off date, with any recommendations you and they make. It seems a bit more professional than I mean, Clive's already signed them off.
Yeah. So I can come in on that, Cllr Purewal. That was the plan, Councillor Todd, to send you the final updated set of accounts with the audit completion report, which Lucy would draft in advance of us actually signing those accounts off.
Okay. Thank you. I hope my colleagues and the chair agree. Chair?
Yes, well, certainly, Councillor Todd, you are right, quite right. Yes, we want after it's all done, everything else. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you. So we agree the recommendations on page 76, please.
Agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, Councillor.
Agreed.
Thank you. Agreed. Thank you very much. Any other matter anybody wants to raise?
Yes, Chair. Just to say, I've had a message from Councillor Mann sending his apologies. He's unable to join us, obviously, this evening.
Yes, looking after the new baby.
He didn't go into that detail. He was away, unable to connect or something. So if we could just, for the record his apologies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Councillor.
Thank you. Is that all? Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you for your help and support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Right.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah. There we go.
Well,
Sign it out. Good, good.
We're just waiting for the meeting to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Robert,
you.
if you cut the feed, Robert.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
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 Right.